Welcome to Build a Panel, World Creation in WoW.
Time, boys. What? Time.
Stories. They are what bind us together. Since the dawn of time, mankind has been telling stories. Sitting by the dancing lights of campfires, weaving original tales of love, intrigue, horror. You see, man is simply a walking story. People are all stories, just waiting to be read. But some stories, my darling, some stories leap out and grab you like a great snake until they slowly consume you, until the imagined reality of your mind is correct. Some stories bore their way into your brain like a drill, twisting and twisting and twisting and twisting and twisting until they become a part of you, till they become your world. Now, you may think this is a story of horror, but I am merely a gatekeeper. It is my duty to open the portal to that other world. That world has become your world. Say its name. Say its name. Say its name. Azeroth. This is Build a Panel. I am Mr. Wren, and there will be story. In a series of online votes, we came to you. We asked what you wanted this panel to be about. You voted and you chose World of Warcraft. We then came to you and we asked what you wanted the focus of the panel to be about. You again voted and you chose world building and lore. We then asked you to choose a question that we would pose at the end of the panel. That question will be posed at the end of the panel. We then asked you who you wanted to host the panel. You chose me! Yet you gave me the most inelegant nickname, Scarin' DePaul. You will learn, my friends, names have power. Please welcome now 3 very powerful names on today's panel. Principal level designer on World of Warcraft, Gary Plattner. Lead level designer on World of Warcraft, Jim Chadwick. Senior game designer on World of Warcraft, Steve Burke. And now, that Build a Panel begin. Gentlemen, would you please introduce yourselves and these lovely artists?
Absolutely. I'm Steve Burke. I'm a designer on World of Warcraft, where I get to help lead our amazing team of quest designers. And our quest designers are practically joined at the hip with these guys, our level design team.
I love things that are joined at the hip.
For Battle for Azeroth, I had the privilege of overseeing Kultiris from beginning to end. So if you liked Kultiris, thank you. we're going to be sitting right over here after the panel. Please come by and say hi to us. If you didn't like Kultiris, I brought my friend Gary Plattner here. He'd love to hear all about it.
That's right, yeah. Please come and see me. But my name is Gary Plattner. I've worked on World of Warcraft from the beginning, actually. I've been here for 19 years. Most of that time on the art team. Thank you, my family.
One fan.
And thank you. Thank you. Yeah, most of that time I've been on the art team, but for the last 3 years, I've had the privilege of being a level designer. I think it's the best job on the team. It's good, honest work.
Yes,
You can get it. It's good work. It's good work. And I get to work with my very good friend, my very old friend, Jim Chadwick.
Thank you. I'm Jim Chadwick. I'm the lead level designer for World of Warcraft. I've been with the team also for about 19 years. It's really interesting. I guess people ask you what you do for a job, and it's kind of hard to describe. So it's great today that we actually get to show you how we take something that Steve Burke and his team has put together and make it visual, so you can actually see the visual storytelling, whether it be someone that's broken down to the car that's blown off the side of the road to something that's a little bit more dramatic, like Proudmoore Keep. Anyway, excited to show you off.
The question, gentlemen, where do we start?
Well, that's a great question.
Good question.
So with every zone, when we break ground, we do have some high-level story obligations that we like to put out there, some things that we want to accomplish with the zone. But we try to leave the vast majority of the work for the designers themselves so that they can explore and create and have ownership of that space. Kultiris was a little bit different. Kultiris was...
I'm a little bit different.
We are all a little bit different.
Yeah, we work for Blizzard.
What I mean by that is that Kultiris was not, we didn't start from scratch. Those zones had been in Warcraft lore since the very beginning. So we knew that this was going to be a kingdom of humans that set sail from Gilneas and became this hardy seafaring people. So we knew that about their culture. We knew that they had created the greatest naval fleet that Azeroth had ever seen. We knew that it was the birthplace of Jaina Proudmoore, one of our favorite heroes. So we wanted to tell a special, intimate story there.
My hand does that sometimes. It's like a murloc. I love you. Tell us more.
Can we trade places?
No.
No?
I'm
So, also we knew... Are we just changing this whole thing?
Yes. It's live, dear boy.
All right.
Look at all the confused faces.
So we also knew that we needed to create the capital city of Borealis, right? And creating cities in World of Warcraft, as you guys will attest to, is nothing easy. It's one of the hardest things that we do. And Jim Chadwick was responsible, I'm sorry.
Colin Ballrath.
Colin. I'm all confused now.
I was
It's got me
responsible.
flustered. Colin was in charge of the layout of Borealis. And so, Colin, why don't you tell everybody how that went?
Sure. Thanks, Steve.
Hey, Jim.
So my name is Colin Volrath. I'm a level designer here on the World of Warcraft team. I've been on the team for about 5 years. During Battle for Azeroth, I got to work on the city of Borealis, like Steve was talking about. I also got to work on a number of different places all over Tiergard Sound. And today, I kind of just want to show you a little bit of our process for how we build cities in Borealis, or in World of Warcraft for that matter. So kind of what we're looking at here, this is more of a finished version of Borealis, as everybody's kind of familiar with, who's played through Battle for Azeroth. But cities in World of Warcraft do not start like this. They start in a much more different, much raw form than what we're looking at here. So if you guys will kind of go along with me on a little journey here. And when we're talking about cities in World of Warcraft, we look at older cities like Gilneas, Shattrath, Dalaran for inspiration, more recently Suramar. And most of our cities in World of Warcraft, they actually start a lot like this. This is a very, 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 very early version of Borealis in its first version. And it's real simple here. We're looking at these red lines really were meant to represent roads, and the green spaces were meant to represent just districts or places of interest as you move around the space.
When you're designing, do you listen to music at all?
All the time.
What is your favorite song or tune or genre of music to put you in the mood for design?
I actually listen to a lot of old game music, like 8-bit, 16-bit.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not expect that answer. Please continue.
Yeah. So from this, we quickly then move into sort of a second phase. And what we're doing here is we're trying to nail sort of 3 big bullet points. And the first one is flow, and that's how you progress through this space as a player, right? How does it feel, when you stop and you take quests or that kind of stuff? Do we like the spacing between what we call POIs or points of interest? And then from this, we also have a sort of a second thing we're trying to hit, which is scale. And since this is we're talking about a human city, right? Scale is a huge part of that because it needs to feel like a medieval city, a very classical space. So that was really important with this. And then from this, we'll then quickly kind of move into the last version of this, which is where we're actually taking those scale block pieces and we're going to actually start bringing in finalized assets from the art team. These are the same buildings. This is the same shot that I was just showing you guys to try to line up shots. We're trying to line up a shot here with Proudmoore Keep. And this is to kind of hit the third bullet point, which is the vibe and the theme of the space. And that's my process.
What did you want the vibe and the theme of this particular space to feel?
Well, so like Steve was saying earlier, with Coltiris, the vibe here needs to be, like you can almost taste the salt in the air. This is a naval city, a naval power, so their town needs to reflect that sort of style when you come through here. So it needs to feel like a hearty place, a very homey place.
You wanted to feel very lived in, very popular.
Yes, we absolutely wanted to feel like when you came here, they had already been here for a very, very long time, and you're stepping into their space.
Excellent. So, tell me, have you ever gone in the real world, perhaps to Europe or perhaps somewhere, that inspired you to create streets like this, visually?
Sure. We look at references all the time. I've been to England a number of times, but for this city, we looked at a lot of places in France. We looked at cities like Hamburg quite a bit to try to get some of the
famous French town of Hamburg.
Yes. So we looked at a lot of different older medieval cities for inspiration.
Excellent. Are there any statues or points of interest we might find that would surprise us?
Probably not. I can show you kind of some of the process for how we would start bringing in something like that.
Please do.
So for instance, here we have this sort of middle center district of town, and we could bring in a statue here of Dalen very quickly and kind of orient where we want him to be positioned in this center square.
Am I right in thinking this is a Proudmoore ancestor?
This is Dalen Proudmoore. This is the Grand Admiral of Coltiris. So
It's Jaina's father.
Jaina's father.
His father. Jaina's having a very big year this year.
Yes.
He is. You seen that statue downstairs? That's my favorite statue.
Yeah, really nice.
That instantly.
So, Mr. Wren,
Yes.
so you can see we go through a lot of different processes starting a zone, and every level designer starts a little different way. So let's look in on Josh. Let's have Josh introduce himself and show us what he's going to show us today.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Josh Navarro. I'm a level designer on World of Warcraft. I've been making games for about 10 years now. I've been a prop artist, I've been an environment artist, but being a level designer is by far my favorite. And that's because I get to create beautiful worlds for players to enjoy. So I'm super excited to show you guys how we create those worlds. So this is the very early stages of the Underrot. You might have seen it in Battle for Azeroth, which is a dungeon. Or, the Underrot, which is a dungeon. Battle for Azeroth's expansion. What you can see here is that I'm just focusing on making a really cool composition in the beginning. So I do that by grabbing these blocks and really just moving them around. And I'm thinking maybe this stuff will be a building, and maybe these will be a tree. And I'll copy these places around. And I want to make sure that I'm creating a cool composition and also a really cool and fun place to run through. So I want to call out the roads as a very beginning step. I'll do that just by keeping it loose and making these marks here. And that way, I can pass this off to Quest, and we can play test it and make sure this is all locked down and usable before we move on to the art phase. And really quick, let me just show you what this looks like after we replace all this blue block stuff with actual art.
Yeah, we're just trying to figure out our basic spaces, how big something should be, if it feels right. It's really size is what we're trying to
That
figure
was
out.
interesting. It did reflect the moldy atmosphere of this cavern. It looked
It
like,
soon
you
will
know
be.
when you have yogurt and you pull it off and there's that water at the top? It looks like that what you were doing.
Yeah.
You were like doing the yogurt water level. What flavor of yogurt do you like best?
Strawberry.
Strawberry
Yeah,
is
yeah,
the winner.
good
You just
strawberry.
put it in there. Josh, tell me, was there a teacher that inspired you?
Yeah, I had a teacher in school and college that really helped me, so that was awesome. I think I didn't really get it until I met him, and then I was able to move
You
forward.
want to shout out their name?
Sure, yeah, his name's Nick Marks, yeah. He's pretty
Teachers
cool.
are important.
It's very important.
They set
yeah.
us on our path.
Totally.
Am I making you nervous?
A little bit.
Mission accomplished.
You're so close to me right now.
Josh is uncomfortable.
They voted for this.
I know. Why?
Never let them vote for this.
All right.
Show
all right,
us
let me-
more, Magic Man.
So you can see all the temporary stuff is out and how far this comes along with just replacing those pieces, which is really cool. Another thing that I've done is added more detail to the terrain. You can see our terrain here, which is pretty cool. And I can sculpt this around and move it up and down. And I can also add secondary textures, which give the environment a little bit more depth when I'm starting to paint this in.
Well, Josh, you're telling a story with the bone.
Absolutely, yeah. So if I want you to start here and go here, I want something to be in between. So that can be anything. It could be something small like dinosaur bones. And that's also suggesting that maybe there was life down here at one point and it's been consumed by the underrot. And also the buildings too. The buildings here show that maybe there was trolls living down here at one point and now it's all in ruins.
Do you think spare is better, or do you like to populate it with more items?
I think it depends on the level. It can be challenging, especially with something with the underrot. It can become very overwhelming. There can be a lot of busyness and noise. So you have to really be conscious of not flooding it with too many assets, too many things going on, but still providing it with that chaotic look.
I like chaotic looks.
Absolutely.
I look like a head waiter at a mausoleum. They don't have head waiters at mausoleums.
Well, Mr. Wren, that's an interesting topic, actually. If we want things to feel busy, we'll put an area that's not busy near something that we want to feel thick. So we have that sort of contrast, which I think you can identify with.
Indeed.
Yes.
I think Josh is doing too while he's going over the spaces. He's trying to make sure that spatially it feels right. There's a road flowing correctly. Our areas, making sure that like the actual going to the next POI, the next spot feels right. And then from there, we just keep slowly iterating. While it's unpainful, if it feels we need to move it out 30 yards or 100 feet, it's not going to be painful for him to move it before he's putting any detail in.
Because it all comes back to story.
Exactly.
What is the story of this level? What story do you want the player to feel as they progress through it?
Exactly. Story dictates everything.
And every iteration of this goes back and forth. Like I said, they were joined to the hip. This goes back and forth with the quest
Now,
designer.
iteration. Would you explain what iteration is?
Iteration is where we look at something and we play through everything at every step. And if we have notes that'll help steer the zone where we feel it needs to be, we'll give those notes back to these guys and they'll iterate on it. They'll make changes. But these guys work really close with the quest designers. And one of the things with what he's doing right now is that we'll play through that space, we'll run through it, and we've got a different lens that we look through. Like we need to know, how many monsters is this going to be able to hold? What can we spawn here? What's the story? Is it about the dinosaur bones? Is it about something else? how are we going to really move you through that space? And them communicating is key. It's important.
Well, it's also flow. Like he's even put in dinosaur buttons there. What he's trying to do is steer your eye to the left and then bring it up to the actual point you want him to go to. So you'll find little ways to kind of tell that story, like tell little things that are happening on the zone, but really trying to lead the eye of the player and the player himself to a point that you're trying to get him to.
Right.
Talking about iteration too is something we constantly do. Sarah is working on an area right now, Narathi, which is something I started first with my first PvP zone.
I
Good morning.
am.
Please introduce yourself to our lovely crowd.
So hi everyone, my name is Sarah Wands. I am a level designer on the World of Warcraft team, and I've been on the team for almost 3 years now, where I had the privilege of working on Drustvar, if we have any Drustvar fans in the house. Yeah. My background is actually in graphic design, but believe it or not, there are a lot of really similar themes that run through both professions, so I ended up transitioning my way into level design, and it's my dream job, and Blizzard is my dream company. So today, I'm going to show you guys a little bit of behind the scenes on the Arathi base in Upres, which we just announced yesterday. So as Jim mentioned, he worked on it, and Jim is my boss. So imagine your boss coming to you and saying, hey, redo this thing I did, but make it better.
Perfect better. Yeah.
Of course, it was perfect before. But, you know, technology has advanced in the 15 years since.
Oh, gotta throw age out there.
Just to put it in perspective, we are still using the same engine that vanilla was built on, believe it or not. But we have really talented engineers and programmers who have helped raise the visual bar to what you see today. And actually, in 2004, when vanilla launched, the pinnacle of cell phone technology was the Razr flip phone, if any of you remember that. So it's been a while. So in redoing Arathi, I really wanted to concentrate on highlighting all of those technological advances, such as view distances. We can give you really long, expansive view distances without melting your graphics card, which is great. So I really wanted to make sure to keep everything true to Arathi, the feel of Arathi, because it's always been one of my favorite battlegrounds for the Horde. So, yeah, don't be shy, Hordes.
There's
Come
two
on.
Horde.
So yeah, that was really my main motivation, was keeping the feel of Arathi that everyone knows and loves, but giving it the facelift that it deserves.
What surprises will we find that you might drop in?
Oh, surprises. So this is something that we all probably shouldn't do, but enjoy doing when no one's looking. So we like to hide little Easter eggs here and there.
Can you speak to a favorite of yours?
I suppose I can. It's not in Arathi, but
Well, then save that story if you'd like to tell it later.
I can tell it now.
And you tell it now.
Okay.
Your boss is over there.
He is. Sorry, Jim.
Good work.
So there was one day that I was kind of loopy. I'd had too much caffeine or something, and I noticed in our asset library we had this baby. And I was like, that's kind of funny. Why do we have a baby? And so I put it in a tree, in a bird's nest, thinking no one would see it. For sure, no one's going to see this. It's in Drustvar, you know, and we don't have flying yet, so I thought there's no way anyone's going to find it. And then I go on Reddit one day, and you guys found it. It's like, all right, okay, we found the baby in the tree.
Did they give the baby in the tree a name?
I didn't. Do you guys want to?
Please give the baby in the tree a name.
Ren.
Red?
Red!
Perfect.
Baby in the tree.
Baby in the tree.
Tree baby is now called Ren.
Yeah.
He is cursed with that shameful, shameful name. And will carry on
Yes.
my lineage. So when you visit the baby in the tree, share a moment, share your pity for tree baby Ren. Tell us more, tell us more, tell us more.
Well, so here you can see we've got original Arathi that Jim did so well the first time, of course.
And then there's Diet Iraqi. It's original Ryaki.
So what I really started with was, as I mentioned, the view distances, really wanting to open up the space and make it feel like the Scottish Highlands that the original vision was trying to capture. So I'm going in and I'm really simplifying the shapes in the mountains. You can see the original was a bit more busy. And we've learned a lot since then. We've gained a lot of technology just even in our painting tools, we have a lot more options in level of detail, and our environment artists do such an amazing job giving us these new trees, assets, any kind of new tile set that they paint to really keep the same vibe of Arathi, but helping to fill in these big spaces and keep it more simple.
Do you find that the angle of the tree or the amount of moss, that will affect the story as well? Tell a different visual story?
Oh, sure. If we're trying to lead a player in a certain direction, we might tilt a tree a little bit to the one way you want to go, or sometimes a trick that we do is we create some kind of archway, a visual archway, over a path, because I don't know why, inherently, people just feel like they want to go through that doorway. So we use that a lot. Do we know why? I don't.
I don't think generally, it's just framing. It's trying to find ways to get, focus the player, this is where you want to go. Usually it's a path, lighting, all that kind of thing. And you have the innocuous areas on the side that you just don't care about. But
so we have set this up, but our next question is, of course, what does happen next?
Yes. Well, constant iteration. We're constantly going over the areas, make sure that, does it feel good? Is it a desert? Does it feel right? Is it something we're repeating too often? If it is, we'll often change something. Like Gorgorong, it was all these vents, these thermal vents that turn around about 4 months in the process. We decided it should be a jungle. And so we put a little jungle atmosphere in there. And it's just ideas, whether it's something breaking up the monotony of a zone or just coming up with something that's a little bit more interesting. So yeah, it's just part of the iteration process.
Yeah, sometimes we're so sure about what we want to make. We'll have a great idea, and we'll do a concept, and we love it. And then we build the zone, and we love that. Then we run around in it, and we hate it.
We don't love it.
Sometimes you need to build something to know if you like it or not, or if it's working or not. So we do call that process iteration, and we're very proud that we're able to do this. Since I've been here, I know we've shipped probably, or actually canceled more games. I think we can still say that, canceled more games than we've actually shipped. So not only will we iterate on little crates or little zones, sometimes entire games, we're not quite sure they meet that level. So we're doing that constantly, and we love that process. It's all part of storytelling. Will
you ever save something, an idea or a visual image that didn't quite work in a particular level?
Absolutely.
But might work in another?
That's what makes iteration so, it's not like it's throwaway. Everything is useful in some way. We've gained a lot of story knowledge making something, and then not really getting rid of it. We'll put it in our little box.
It'll be a sub area. It'll be something we'll save for either a later expansion, maybe if it's a really good idea, or it might just be a hero piece.
You've made a lot of quests, I understand.
A few. Has anybody...
He's done 4 quests so far.
The Amber Seed quest, does anybody remember that quest? Amber Seeds? No? No, man, new people. Yes, a few quests.
Yes. What was your favorite? What surprised you when you created it?
Oh, wow. I don't know about surprises. So I also led on Suramar, which was not too long ago. You guys remember Suramar? Somewhat recent? And there we took some risks, just game mechanic-wise, the disguise mechanic, and just kind of built on that. It was a little bit iffy when I first pitched it. We weren't sure it was going to work, and this was part of that process of going in and trying, and people actually, it got some traction, and it worked out really well. Probably our poster child, I think, recently at least, for iteration would be Drustvar. And Sarah can probably talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Drustvar actually started out as a frozen wasteland. We're all big Game of Thrones fans here, so I think we were all very inspired by Beyond the Wall. And that's really how Drustvar started, and we just realized that it wasn't hitting the marks that we wanted to. It just wasn't feeling right. So we decided, we've been working on it for, I don't know, probably a month or so?
Several weeks.
Several months, yeah. And we got the call that it was not working, so we started over, and now we have the awesome creepy forest that you see today, which is great. And I think that's one of the things that really makes the Blizzard quality bar what it is that we're not afraid to start over if we have to get it right, because we want to make sure that it's the best experience and the best environment and story for everyone.
If you ever visit the campus at Blizzard, we've got our core values that are engraved in front of the campus. And one of them is commitment to quality. And that's exactly what that means, is that we'll look at it, and if it's not feeling right to us, we'll back up and we'll reimagine it. And Dressvar in particular, very different environment. It was a different story. There were a couple of camps of witches out on the periphery just for kind of a flavor hit. And those actually did resonate. So when we backed up, we reimagined the zone, and as you can see, we kind of leaned into that theme a little bit more, and it worked out for us.
It's a fun process. Why don't we go to Colin real quick, and if he can talk about all of the changes that happened in the Kaltiran continent and the...
No, that was the one zone. That was perfect right out of the gate.
Yeah.
Right?
No, yeah, it was, right.
One shot, one
And then
go.
we changed it. It's perfect every time. And then we get rid of it.
Yeah, it was a home run. Home run.
They're all home runs, man.
No, so Borealis, talking about iteration, Borealis went through a lot of changes over time, and cities in particular, when it comes to World of Warcraft, are built on a lot of blood, sweat, and tears along the way. A lot of eyes are on those all through from the beginning all the way until the end. And this example here, even this version of Borealis that I actually brought here today, this isn't even the final version of Borealis that's in the game. This is actually one of the first layouts that we did. So this doesn't even actually exist in the game. And it's just because of the feedback and the iteration that we got as we were building the space.
Now, this is an alliance city.
Correct.
Are you drawn more to alliance or to horde?
So I'm actually a horde player.
Yeah, there's more than two.
It's always fun and interesting and challenging to work on something that you're not actually, factionally aligned to. But ever since I actually started working here, I did level an alliance character. I played through Gilneas just to get a feel for that space. Because I think it's important for level designers to have a balance between both factions when because you're not always going to be able to make horde spaces all the time. You're going to be asked to do all kinds of different things.
Now, Colin, no one's going to hear this. Smoke bomb. They didn't hear this. Did you ever sneak a horde graffiti in an alliance city?
There might have been one that was then removed.
Oh.
Yeah.
Earmuffs, Jim, earmuffs. Don't listen.
They didn't hear.
Okay.
There was a smoke bomb.
Yeah. It was in Stormwind.
Really?
Yeah.
And he got caught.
Yeah, it got found.
Oh.
There's where Varian's tomb was. There was a horde symbol.
Really? As if someone snuck in and painted it and then snuck out.
So I had to build Varian's tomb, which was fun because I got to go back and work on a vanilla space. I got to build out that memorial garden space, which was awesome. But I had to then also try to sneak in a little horde symbol painted underneath, and it got found out.
Oh.
Yeah.
But it's an idea that may be saved for another level.
You never know.
Smoke bomb dissipates. No one heard that, by the way.
So going back to iteration with Borealis, like Steve was talking about with Suramar in particular, with Borealis, one of the big things that changed over time with this is we had to add a bunch of, we call them safe roads for Alliance players. We wanted to have very easy navigable ways for players to kind of get in and out of the main hub without having to, aggro a bunch of mobs along the way. And in this version, the entire city was hostile, just like it was in Suramar. And we didn't want to have you put on a mask again, so we had to come in here and basically bulldoze whole sections of the city and add in these safe avenues for players to kind of come and go.
Very interesting.
Yeah. But going back to the other point that I was talking about earlier, we already had nailed down our vibe and our theme. We had kind of nailed down the atmosphere of the space. We just had to rework the first part, which was the flow and the layout and all that kind of stuff. So
Fascinating.
it's part of the process.
It's all part of the process we call Azeroth. Did.
Yes.
I'm just going to stare at you for a long time, Colin.
Everybody does.
I'm still doing it, Colin.
Mr. Wren, maybe
Hello.
I can help.
Oh, sorry.
Okay,
I was enjoying the aura of artistry wafting
Oh, yes.
from Colin.
I was too, and yeah, very good, very good. Let's
enjoy Josh's.
Let's.
Speaking of the aura of artistry.
Lots of changes happened to Underrot, and I'd love to see what Josh had to deal with some of those big changes we went through with that zone.
Yeah, the Underrot went through a lot of changes. Iteration is just super important for every step of the process, every step of the way. And Underrot was actually supposed to be a zone, and we pitched it that way several times, and it just wasn't working. And instead of forcing it, we just kind of shelved it for a little bit and then decided that it would work better as a dungeon. And so we reused those pieces to create a dungeon, and it works way better that way. Another example would be in Vol'dun. It's a lot of desert, and we were trying to think of ways to break up that desert, and we were thinking maybe we should throw in more jungle, more trees, and through all those iterations, we actually found out that hiding a little oasis in the middle of the dunes would work best for that breakup and add just that little bit of visual interest and really make it unique.
Yeah, cool.
Awesome.
Thanks, Josh. All right, let's talk about my favorite part.
Polish.
Absolutely.
It's where we actually get to tell, like, I guess, most of our story.
The finish, the end of the
Finish.
story. How
Yes.
you polish.
Yes. My very favorite part of the process, because now we know the size of the zone, which is very important, so we can play within those spaces. And we know the storylines, mostly, of what they're going to be. We know what quests are going to happen. We know the scale. So now is the time we can really put in that story detail, the small things that really make the difference. And it's really a time when we get to really see a small section of what the final piece is going to be. And that's very inspiring for everybody on the team, because now we have lighting coming in. We also have music, sound effects. Sound design is something you may not think about. But with sound, we can say if something is dangerous or something is cold or any sort of emotion. It's half the picture, really. So all this stuff is happening in the polished section. So Josh actually has a pretty dramatic, different part of Underrot where you can see the final version, which really we had a concept of, but was never really visualized until Josh started to do the polished section.
Yeah.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
This is like my favorite part as well. So I could just totally zen out doing this type of stuff.
Yeah.
You really get to go in and add in the small details. I know I talked about the dinosaur bones here, but it's cool to go in and add some props around it and really tell the story of how it died and why. So I'm thinking like maybe this dinosaur was down here and it got infested by this fungus and it consumed its body, and that's what happened to it, and it's dead, and now it's become part of the Underrot. So you can do that through all these little props, and you can see this is really time consuming, but it makes a huge, huge difference. Another thing, like we were mentioning, was adding lighting to the zone. You can see when I turn this off that it can really help to call out certain areas that you may want to lead the player to. So I've added a little pop of color here, and I can go in and open this tool, grab one of these lights, grab one of these lights and use it to highlight a part of the building. And so that really helps. And the very last step that I like to do is something that we call vert painting. And it helps to push these textures that we've painted down just a little bit extra. And it adds a little bit of depth. So you can see I can get a little more detail in this painting. And if I turn it off and on, you can see what a huge difference it makes. So this is without, and this is with. There's a difference.
Really fun.
And thanks.
Nice job. One of my favorite features.
And let me just show you how powerful this tool can get. And we definitely don't need to do this at all, but it's just a really cool option that is there.
Well, just to show how it works.
Yeah, absolutely. We definitely don't want to do this. This is really heavy-handed, but I could literally turn this terrain into any color that I want, which is really, really cool. I definitely wouldn't want to do that. That would destroy the textures, but that's how far we can take it.
Nice.
Really, it's just to bring out the depth. Sarah has a slightly different process right now. She's working with the Arathi Basin, which was already kind of laid out, so we didn't have to worry about flow. the timing between zones, or between POIs, and also the scale of POIs. She had to come in and kind of up-res it, show how we do things now. What's the new style? What's the new take on how we not only use more props, but also use a lot better look. Evolved the look quite a bit. Go ahead, sir.
Wow us with your magic.
So, really a main issue that we wanted to address was what makes Arathi feel like Arathi, and how do we keep that feeling? And so we did work with the environment artists, the prop artists, the WMO artists, which are the ones who build our buildings, and everyone was all hands-on with making sure that we could take this to the quality bar that it deserves, because it's such a staple, and we really, really wanted to keep that same feel, but take it to the next level.
Now, I know that you work a lot in computer. Do you prefer designing first with paper and pencil, or always computer?
We do a lot of paper and pencil. Sometimes, if you can't really think of what to do, it's good just to get in the editor and just start throwing props at things and trying to figure out what's working, what's not, what you're going for. So that's really, it's a super fun thing to get to do, a really fun process to get to experience.
When you've done that, what surprise did you find? Did it ever lead to a surprise that you did not expect when you were just going from your mind, just designing?
Oh yeah, all the time. And the really cool thing about our team, I think Blizzard as a whole in general, is how collaborative our work is. And so every week we, as level designers, have a meeting and we show what we're doing, and we get feedback from each other, and we come up with the craziest, coolest ideas that just end up completely sending you in a different direction, but it's the best direction that you could have gone in. So it's really, really awesome being able to be surrounded and supported by such incredible peers and friends to help you get through that.
And that is reflected in the game. It is a game in which you meet peers and friends, and yet you all are that.
Right.
So it goes through the computer into the gamer.
Absolutely.
It connects all of us.
Absolutely
Well done.
does.
Well done indeed.
Thank you, Sarah.
It's really interesting to see. We come out, like you said, we come up with these concept art pieces that shape what we think we want to see in these zones. We come up with demo zones, and everything's feeling right. But a lot of times we'll come to these meetings and we'll see what we've kind of carved out.
Right.
And that sparks better ideas. And sometimes we'll head off in a different direction. And it's important that that's a safe place to work, right? Because we're all kind of pouring out our souls and like, hey, is this cool?
Sometimes it's unexpected, though. Like, we'll be in a meeting with Alex, and he'll be like, wow, I really like that. What if we do this? And it's over here, and we're like, man, we got to throw away some work.
Start over.
But it's a really good idea.
Exactly.
And we're
Sometimes
like,
it's a ton of work, but it's a better idea, and the best idea always wins. And that's the magic. That's when it feels so great.
The best idea wins. Ego is out the door.
Exactly.
Oh, you can't, right. Nothing is personal. The work we do here is not your own. It's what we're representing for the game and what represents the story the best way, right? If you felt things were personal, and I tell this to students a lot, your work is not your personal baby up there. We need to be able to tear that up and say something is no good. It's not that you're no good,
Right.
or you're whatever. The work could be better, and it's going to get better if you allow yourself to listen to those sorts of criticisms, right?
It's one of the things working with new designers too, right? It really is that personal, especially I think with Quest, where you're crafting these words and this story to try to go along with these amazing environments. And we play these. It's important to know, we talked about creation of zones and all these iterations, and as leadership, we look at the zones and we play through the content at every stage. And we will give notes. And those notes sometimes, again, it's not that you did a bad job. It's just, hey, maybe it's a great story, but it's not being told in a wow way.
Right, it could be improved. Plus, we're hoping other designers are going through and looking through our zones and being inspired for little points of interest, small little stories that get little microscopic things. We want everyone to be inspired by every little corner.
It's also important to know, because we get a lot of people that are just fantastic storytellers or really good writers, for example, right? But being a quest designer on World of Warcraft, isn't just that. Another one of our core values is gameplay first, and our quest designers are the guys that actually go in, they place the monsters and the quest givers, and all those interactions that you see are handcrafted by these guys. And
oh, that's a good point. Sorry, I wanted to, everything we do, nothing is procedural. You see how they work? This is how they build the game. Everything is placed by hand. Everything is done by hand, and I think it's important. Sorry, another thing I want to mention before we run out of time,
We do have a
storytelling.
question to pose at the end.
I understand. But we talk about storytelling, and I wanted to say that this latest expansion really represents a type of storytelling we had always hoped we could do in World of Warcraft. When you think about it, we have these pre-rendered cinematics, which are fantastic. These in-game cinematics by Taryn Gregory's team. All of our little storylines that the quest guys can do, little cinematics. The storytelling that our level designers are doing. Everything is related. If you remember our old cinematics from the beginning, they didn't really have a whole lot to do with our story. They were really pretty, but they didn't move along our storytelling the way it is now, which is incredible. And only really this expansion have we got all these other teams to work together and do it. I can see the emotion, it's subtle. We've all matured in our storytelling abilities.
Right, we've all been here for a while now.
A little bit.
It's such an honor to be able to, it's something so special, we know it's special,
Yeah.
to be able to work on this game for that long and to learn so much. We watch you guys play,
And improve
we
it.
play it. And then learning how, we have these creative meetings at the beginning of zones or at the beginning of an expansion, and we come out with these ideas and we beat up these stories and some really cool ideas that we get goosebumps, right?
Yes.
And then it goes through us, it goes through our designers, it goes through our level designers' hands, and then it goes to you guys. And in previous expansions, back 3 or 4 expansions ago, something sometimes got lost along the way. It was still great, but now when we watch you guys play, or streamers, and they're basically saying the same things we were saying in those first meetings.
I love watching.
It's like, okay, we're just hitting our stride now, and I gotta tell you.
I feel like it now. I never thought I'd be working on this game this long, but it honestly doesn't feel like one game. You know, every expansion is a new opportunity to tell stories a different way and to improve how we do it.
Same way we're telling it, even graphically, like watching something with the same editor, same resolution on the terrain, and yet each time I'm blown away by how far.
That's a great point. We could not build Borealis just a few years ago. The way our level of detail, we call it, it's our ability to display more fidelity in the city than we could ever do. Borealis is a type of city we've always wanted to make. That sort of detail really wasn't possible before. Now we're able to almost let our level designers practically do whatever they want to if it tells the story.
And you are telling that story. These artists here are the true heroes of design. And yet, the question that you chose to pose to our panel was, what Blizzard hero or villain would you choose to represent you, to be your champion, to fight for you in a duel?
I went with Medivh. I love the guy.
Medivh, the magician.
Medivh.
Well, the Keeper of Secrets, I like the fact that he kind of, for me, he started it all. He opened up the gate and really kind of started the Horde and Alliance conflict. But it's definitely Medivh.
You have notes. What did you?
I probably took this question more seriously than it was meant to be.
You did research.
I went and I researched, and my champion, since Battle for Azeroth, stands a little higher than all the rest, because as of a week ago,
and the winner
we're
is
standing on 16,836,000 of your corpses. It's Vectus from Oldir.
It's a good champion.
well chosen, Mr. Plattner.
I did no research. I just chose Perry Gatner. He's my alter ego in Shathrath. He's a comedian, so he dies on stage or he kills. Either way. That's
well put. Josh?
Yes, I chose Navarog because he has the best name in all of World of Warcraft, so I'm just gonna go with
Best
that.
name.
Excellent, excellent. Now, when you play, are you drawn to Horde or Lions?
Definitely drawn to Horde. Yeah.
Colin,
Yes, sir.
your champion. Choose them. Say them now. Who would be your champion to fight for you in a duel?
So,
Tell us their name. We can't wait any longer. Please, Colin. Please, I'm begging you on bended knee. Tell us now, I shall speak no more. Except to say this. Tell us.
so for my champion, I'll be choosing my boy Bwansambi.
Oh!
He be trolling everybody.
Well chosen. Sarah, finish this and tell us your hero, your champion.
I would have to choose Sylvanas because some women just want to watch the world burn. Sorry about your tree.
Any final thoughts? Anyone?
I would just say we were just talking about how we just hit our stride.
Yes.
We're talking about things that are coming up. But we've got some amazing things coming.
Yes,
so
absolutely. And thank
hang
you
in
guys
there.
for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming.
There is magic coming. This has been Build-A-Panel. Please applaud for our wonderful panelists. As an added bonus, a gift from me to you, you can meet the panelists after the panel. Ask them your questions, your burning questions. Share your stories. For all of us here today, we are on that adventure. You're sharing a story together. This has been Build-A-Panel. I am Mr. Wren, and there were stories. Thanks.
Thank you for attending Build-A-Panel, World Creation in WoW.